Every moment you're awake, dreaming, or lost in thought, your brain is broadcasting electrical rhythms, delicate waves of energy shaping what you call reality. Yet, when those rhythms shift, so does the world itself. Your sense of time, self, and space all bend. Yet something within you keeps observing. Neuroscience calls these changes brainwave frequencies. But here's the mystery. If consciousness changes with rhythm, who or what is doing the listening? In neuroscience, we define altered states of consciousness, or ASCs, as conditions where our awareness differs qualitatively from normal waking life. Meditation, trance, lucid dreaming, psychedelic experiences, even deep REM sleep. All of them share one fascinating thing in common. They come with measurable shifts in brainwave frequencies, those rhythmic electrical pulses that ripple through our neurons, shaping thought, emotion, and perception. Scientists talk about brainwaves. They're describing oscillations measured in hertz, cycles per second. These rhythms create a kind of inner symphony. Delta waves, 0.5 to 4 hertz. Slow, deep, the music of dreamless sleep. Theta, 4, 7 hertz, the frequency of drowsiness, meditation, and creativity. Alpha, 8, 12 hertz, calm wakefulness, the rhythm of relaxed attention. Beta, 13, 30 hertz, alert thinking, analysis, and focus. Gamma, 30 hertz and beyond, high-speed synchronization linked to insight, awareness, and sensory unity. Every moment of consciousness is a dance among these rhythms, rising, blending, dissolving. While each rhythm supports healthy cognition, imbalances can create emotional turbulence. Excessive beta can fuel anxiety or fear. Reduced alpha may block calmness, and disrupted gamma can make perception fragmented. The story of how we discovered this symphony began about a century ago. In the 1920s, a German psychiatrist named Hans Berger made the first human EEG recording, translating invisible brain electricity into visible waves on paper. From that moment, consciousness was no longer just a philosophical mystery. It became something we could measure. But how exactly do we see these rhythms today? EEG, or electroencephalography, uses electrodes placed on the scalp to detect the tiny electrical signals produced by neurons firing in the brain. MEG, or magnetoencephalography, measures the magnetic fields generated by these same neural currents. Together, these tools allow scientists to map brainwaves and track the choreography of millions of neurons in real time. As neuroscience evolved, so did our understanding of these patterns. By the 1960s, researchers were linking alpha waves with calm states, beta with active thinking, theta with meditation and drowsiness. And in recent decades, with high-resolution EEG and fMRI, we've begun mapping how networks across the brain reconfigure during altered states, whether through deep meditation, lucid dreaming, or psychedelics. One of the most intriguing findings comes from psychedelic research, particularly studies using psilocybin and LSD. Under these substances, the brain's default mode network, the system tied to self-reflection and identity, temporarily disintegrates. Neural communication becomes more fluid, more entropic, less constrained by habitual patterns. Almost as if the brain is temporarily rewiring itself, creating new connections and pathways between regions that don't usually talk to each other. Dr. Robin Carhart Harris called this the entropic brain hypothesis, suggesting that higher neural entropy allows the mind to explore a wider repertoire of possible experiences. In other words, when order loosens, new dimensions of consciousness open. Meditation shows similar but subtler changes. Richard Davidson's EEG studies on Tibetan monks found bursts of gamma synchrony during compassion and insight states, far beyond normal baseline levels. It's as if, in those moments of deep stillness, the brain's orchestra moves into perfect harmony. Even lucid dreaming has a signature. Experiments using targeted gamma stimulation during REM sleep have increased the chances of becoming aware inside the dream, a rare glimpse into how specific frequencies might shape awareness itself. And then there are modern tools: binaural beats, neurofeedback, and non-invasive stimulation. Early trials show they can gently guide or train the brain into specific frequency ranges, though effects vary and results remain modest. Robert Monroe, a pioneer in studying consciousness and out-of-body experiences, explored hemispheric synchronization, the idea that syncing the left and right brain can enhance awareness and shift states of consciousness. Still, the principle is powerful. Our consciousness might be more tunable than we once believed. But not everyone agrees on what these findings mean. Skeptics argue that while EEG and fMRI reveal correlations, they don't prove causation. In their view, an altered pattern of brainwaves doesn't create mystical insight, it merely accompanies it. The question remains, are these rhythms generating experience or reflecting it? You know, Ellie, it's fascinating. The deeper we map the brain, the more it feels like we're touching the edges of something beyond measurement.
Exactly, Dio. Science can trace the rhythm, but can it capture the melody? Maybe the states you've described, meditation, trance, dreaming, are not just altered brain activity, but altered ways of being.
So, what happens when we look at these states through the lens of spirit and consciousness itself?
Long before EEG machines or fMRI scans, ancient traditions spoke of what we now call altered states. Shamans entered trance through drumming and dance. Yogis pursued samadhi, a state of deep meditative absorption where the mind becomes completely still and the sense of self fades. Buddhist monks described jhanas, progressive layers of concentration in meditation, each deeper than the last, where the boundary between observer and observed gradually dissolves. Even in Christianity, mystics practiced contemplative prayer, entering silent states of union with God, where ordinary thought and self-awareness fall away. Different cultures, different methods, yet all pointed toward the same intuition, that consciousness isn't fixed. It can expand, deepen, or merge into something vast. When modern neuroscience describes these states in terms of frequency or network reconfiguration, spiritual traditions might describe them as raising vibration, awakening energy, or entering the light of divine union. The language differs, but the experience being mapped may not be so far apart. Imagine consciousness as an ocean. Most of the time, we live near the surface, the beta and alpha waves of ordinary awareness. But meditation, dreaming, psychedelics, or deep trance let us dive beneath the waves, into theta's quiet currents, or even the still delta depths where identity itself disappears. Yet, it's important to be careful. Science can measure the neural correlates of these journeys, the electrical and network changes, but it doesn't prove that consciousness originates in the brain. It only shows that the brain is an exquisite mirror for it. Many metaphysical thinkers suggest something deeper, that altered states don't just change brain patterns, they tune consciousness to broader realities. From this view, the brain is more like a radio receiver than a generator. By shifting its frequency, you don't invent new stations, you receive what was always there. Still, whether you see the brain as receiver or creator, one fact unites both views. Our subjective experience can be profoundly transformed. And those transformations, the feeling of unity, timelessness, love, or boundless awareness, can rewire not just our neurons, but our lives. Today, the frontier is where ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience finally meet. Therapeutic psychedelics are helping people heal trauma. Meditation research is decoding compassion as a trainable brain state. Neurofeedback and entrainment devices are giving ordinary people glimpses of focus and calm, once reserved for monks. It's a new language for an old journey, one that bridges the measurable and the mystical. But even as we measure frequencies and map neural entropy, one question remains open. Do these shifts merely represent consciousness changing, or do they enable it to reach beyond itself? Perhaps altered states are not escapes from reality, but gateways to more of it. Every shift in rhythm, every altered state, is a reminder consciousness is not fixed. It's alive, fluid, and limitless. When you quiet the noise, the mind begins to reveal its own design, a field of awareness where thought, energy, and being merge.